Apadam apahartaram tahataram sarvasampadam lokaviramang shiramam bhuyo bhuyo namaham yaham. I bow down to Rama again and again, who removes all difficulties, who gives all treasures, and who is loved by all. Now I'll add to this a doha, or a verse by the great poet and saint Tulsidas, who said, knowing the universe to be filled with Sita and Ram, I join my two hands, bow down to them in pranam. So again, good morning. And it's April, and April is Rama's month in my world. We had Ram Navami this month. That was Rama's birthday, which was on the 21st. And yesterday was Hanuman Jayanti. Yesterday was Hanuman's birthday. So it's a big day. It's a big time of celebration for Rama devotees, for people all over the Hindu world. And for people, it's a time of great celebration and joy, just as it's been for thousands of years since Rama's birth. And that celebration just keeps on happening. So most people wouldn't put Rama and relevance in the same sentence because Rama was born a very long time ago. They actually say that they've ascertained the date of Rama's birth. And they say, according to the Institute of Scientific Research on the Vedas, they have concluded that Lord Rama was born in 5114 BCE in Ayodhya, which makes it a mere 7,000 years ago. So in our minds, we don't automatically think, oh, 7,000 years ago, that's really relevant to my life now. But Rama was an avatar, just like Krishna, just like Jesus, just like Buddha, just like Sri Krishna. And great souls, these avatars, are born in every age to uplift humanity. And so their teachings are always relevant because they always come, these teachers, these avatars come to uplift humanity and to reestablish Dharma in our lives. They come for the good of the world and they come for our illumination. In our own recent avatar, that is Sri Krishna, Ramakrishna's family had been for generation after generation after generation, for God knows how long, devotees of Rama. They worshipped a stone image of Rama, a Rama Shila, in their little temple outside their home in Kamarpur, which is still being done exactly the same way today as it has been doing for God knows how long. When we read the gospel, Sri Ramakrishna quotes from the Adiaba Ramayana very, very, very often. It's a lovely text. It's sort of half devotional, half jnana. It's all mixed in together. It's quite lovely. The most popular Ramayana in India is the Tulsi one, which is a early 17th century medieval text composed in a particular dialect of Hindi called Awadh that Sri Ramakrishna doesn't quote, and it could very well be that no person ever speaking Awadh ever came down there. And it was, so we don't hear him mention it, but it's the most popular religious text in North India, apart from the Bhagavad Gita. It's the most widely known and used in the Hindu diaspora around the world. Very, very beautiful. So not long before Sri Ramakrishna died, Swami Vivekananda was nursing him, and he was dying of cancer. He was in really bad shape. Swamiji was looking down at this sort of skeletal figure down below him, and looking at him, he thought, is this man an incarnation of God? And Sri Ramakrishna, just looked at him, he said, he who was Rama and he who was Krishna is now again in this body, Sri Ramakrishna, and not in your Vedantic sense. In other words, I'm Brahman, you're Brahman, it's all Brahman, we're all Brahman. No, he said, not in your Vedantic sense. Jai Ram, Jai Krishna, Shai Idanim, Ram Krishna. Those were his words, not in your Vedantic sense. Sri Ramakrishna gave the Rama mantra to Swami Vivekananda. That was the ideal that he had given him to meditate upon. And Swamiji loved Ramnam, he loved to sing Ramnam, and he loved to sing Rama bhajans. Another interesting point is that when Holy Mother Sri Sarada Devi went on pilgrimage in South India, which was many years after Sri Ramakrishna died, she went down all the way to the southern tip of India, to Rameshwaram. And there she went to the temple there, and did puja both morning and evening, did her worship, and she was there for 3 days. And while she was there, Brahmachari Krishnalal was there kind of accompanying her. And he overheard her saying, it's just as I have left. It's just as I have left. It's just as I have left it. And he thought, she'd never been down to South India. She'd never been out of Bengal. So he just, actually she'd been to Vrindavan, but she'd never been down to the South. So he just kind of kept it aside. And then he asked her later and asked her, so, oh mother, how did you enjoy the temple at Rameshwaram? And she said, he is just as I have left him, my son. Well, here's the connection. According to tradition, Sita herself made that Shiva Lingam image that's being worshipped now in Rameshwaram. And seeing that and doing that worship herself brought back the memories of her own incarnation as Sita. And Sri Ramakrishna had a very significant vision of Sita, where he was meditating upon Sita Ram, and Sita merged into his own body. And it is said that Sita's smile, which was exceedingly beautiful, it was gentle, it was radiant, she bequeathed her smile to him. So it was said that he always had Sita's smile. And that vision was so profound to him that it remained with him throughout life. He remembered the bangles that Sita wore. They were beautiful gold, but they were faceted so that each sort of point of the facet caught the light and it looked like the whole thing was filled with diamonds. So after that, he had a couple of those bangles made especially for Holy Mother, which she wore. So all this is interesting, right? But how is this possibly relevant to my life? It's like, these are interesting factoids, but does this going to help me? Well, okay, then what constitutes relevant? What's relevant and what's just entertainment? Well, relevant is what's genuinely helpful in our daily life. What helps us in times of difficulty? What helps us in times of stress? What helps us and guides us when we need to make really tough decisions, or even like normal decisions? What's our ruler there? What smooths the way for us? What gives us a thumbs up when we're trying to do the right thing? And what kind of warns us away when we're going off in the wrong direction? What is relevant is what shows us the right way to act, the right way to behave towards our family and our friends and our society. What shows us how to react with people who aren't our friends, who really don't wish us well. So how do we deal with people who really give us grief? And this is where Rama, and how do we treat the world around us? The nature, the literal world around us. This is where Rama and his teachings are extremely relevant. They're absolutely relevant. And it's been that way for thousands of years. Rama shows by example how to act. He shows us by his words how to behave, how to treat others, how to react to others, and how to treat the world around us, and how to live our life in the best way possible. And he couldn't help but do so, because he was the embodiment, the living embodiment of Dharma, of righteousness, of truthfulness, of right action, of compassion. That's what Dharma is. So if we look at the real pressing issues in our lives today, we'll see that Rama is right there giving us direction. So what are our pressing issues? Well, first of all, basic survival seems to be taking head of the list. Vaccines. So everyone's concerned that everybody get vaccinated. So we want our family, we want ourselves, we want our family, our friends, our loved ones to be vaccinated. So, everyone can live. We also want the people who we don't even know, but we're concerned about, to get their vaccines so that health and welfare can be available for everybody. And we realize it isn't just us, it's the whole world. We're all in this together. If somebody's sick, everyone is affected. So we also want to make sure that basic income can return to people, that the people who've lost their jobs, the people who are suffering with real income inequality right now, that they can be able to get a leg up, that they can be able to live healthy, normal lives, where they're not completely stressed out trying to make rent or just getting basic food for their families. This is basic survival. So this is important. Now, this year we've had like a bonanza of really difficult things coming into our lives. Of course, the pandemic, of course, that's been number one. And economic loss and insecurity because of the pandemic. And the isolation, where people really need to be with each other, but they can't. Or people want to be with their loved ones, with their loved ones when they're sick, but they can't. This has been really hard on people. Kids need to be in school, but they were not able to do so. Parents having to educate them, but they were trying to do 5 billion other things otherwise. As if that wasn't bad enough, the country was filled with tremendous social, political, racial upheaval that really just was, and plain old weirdness took over. Conspiracy theories ran amok, like people you thought might have a basic grasp of being normal human beings, you find out, oh no, they gone to the dark side. So this whole time, truth has been in really short supply. And that's that old canary in the coal mine. Because if truth is in short supply, Dharma is in short supply. And that's muy bad. That's bad. Because Dharma is built on truth. And the entire world is built on Dharma. Dharma is Dri, to uphold the world. Dharma is that which holds us together as a family, as a society, as a nation, as a world. Dharma holds us together. If Dharma is in short supply, everybody goes down. Everybody suffers because everyone gets sort of untethered from reality. And that's what the capital R. It becomes, we get knocked out of whack. The society, the nation gets knocked out of whack. The world gets knocked out of whack. So families get knocked out of whack. We get knocked out of whack because the world gets put in the wrong, we get knocked off our axis. That was Dharma keeps us on our axis. Without truth, without Dharma, there can be no peace, there can be no contentment. And after having so little of it for such a long time, we know how precious life is, because life without them is pure hell. We also realize now that without justice, there can't be peace, there can't be contentment. We realize that our happiness and our peace is dependent on the happiness and peace of everybody else. So if others are under threat, we're also under threat. No justice, no peace, no truth, no Dharma, and then no peace. Without truth, without justice, there is no Dharma, and there is no peace. Well, that's kind of hard going. Well, what else is going on this year? Well, let's not forget the environment. So the environment is it's not about just having a pretty ocean and getting the garbage out of the street. It's literally a deadly serious issue. Well, we've been forced to recognize, whether we like it or not, that we're all deeply connected and interrelated with one another. We're all related to each other, to other inhabitants of the earth, and we're all related to the earth itself. If she goes down, we go down. If others go down, we go down. We're all linked. We're not separate beings. If the earth isn't happy, we're not happy. We're not separate from it. We're not separate from any other living being on this planet. Now, every single issue that we've discussed, Rama shows us, either in words or in deeds, how to deal with it, how to react to it, how to make it better. From the beginning of Tulsidas's Ramayana, nature is invoked, and nature is given profound respect throughout the entire text. She responds in such a loving, maternal way to every single thing that happens. If people are unkind to nature, she reacts with sadness. If people are unkind to each other, she reacts with sadness. If people are shown love and respect, she reacts with joy. Now, throughout the text, Rama shows great respect to the natural world. For example, they get to right down to the edge of India, the southern point of India, and they need to build a bridge over the ocean. Rama is desperate to reach Mother Sita. So what does he do? He sits and does austerities and meditates for 3 days, fasting, not even taking water, on the bank of the ocean, asking for permission from the ocean to build a bridge over the ocean. Okay, can you imagine? if we did that today? Asking permission for Mother Nature. Oh, Mother Earth, may I frack thee? No, it's a bad idea. Do not do that. Okay, thank you. Glad to get your response. Okay. Oh, great ocean, may I pollute thee? May I give you put a lot of oil in there? No, you're going to regret it. Believe me, I will be unhappy. Okay, I won't do that. Oh, Mother Earth, what do you think about overheating? No, it's a really bad idea. Okay, we won't do that. Can you imagine if we actually took nature into account, that we saw her as equally important part of our lives? In the Ramayana, Rama shows us it's not something to be used and thrown away like garbage. Nature is a manifestation, literal manifestation of divinity. It's a literal embodiment of Rama and Sita, of all the forms of gods, goddesses out there. We see thing, they see divine. Rama could see nothing but divinity there. If we maintain this attitude that Rama shows us all throughout the Ramayana, there'd be no environmental crisis. There isn't like us on one side and nature on the other. It's just us. It's only us. And the only thing that separates us from the divine is our own ignorance, our own selfishness, our own blindness, willful blindness, and our own delusion. That's the only thing that separates us from the divine. It's all us. Now, I know y'all know the story, but I'm going to quickly recap. King Dasharatha, Rama's father, the father was a great heroic king, and he was a man of great wisdom and compassion, generosity and integrity. He was just such an embodiment of Dharma. But he was unhappy because he was childless, even though he had 3 beautiful queens. But he prayed with great earnestness to allow him to have an heir to the throne. And the gods and the goddesses, everybody was happy with him and blessed him with boon to have the Lord himself, Vishnu, come down as an avatar, because he was such a man of perfect dharma. So the eldest queen, Kausalya, had the greatest manifestation, the full manifestation of the Lord, as a manifestation of God's grace and God's love, all that in the form of Rama. And Sumitra, who was the wisest and the most philosophical of the queens, had Lakshmana. And the beautiful young, the favorite queen of the king, was Kaikeyi, and she had the twins, Bharata and Shatrughna. And when they were born, the earth rejoiced, and all the townspeople rejoiced, and there was happiness everywhere. And they grew up, and they were heroic and truthful and brave and compassionate, filled with integrity. They were completely devoted to their father, the king, and they had equal love for their 3 mothers. And they were beloved by all the townspeople, and they were devoted and serious students of their guru Vibhishna. They were kind. And they grew up showing this great courage and integrity and deep devotion to God and to their guru and to their parents. Now, Rama in particular was adored by all. His father, he lived for Rama. He had to begin his day by seeing Rama. And all the people in the town and all the people in the kingdom thought that he loved them the best. Whether it was a male or female, rich or poor, old or young, they all felt Rama loves me the most. I can see the way he speaks to me, how he loves me. He loves me the most. Meanwhile, the sage Janaka, of whom we learn so much in the scriptures, we hear about him, and Sri Ramakrishna quotes him all the time. King Janaka was unsurpassed. What did he lack of the world of the spirit? He's a very, very world famous sage. So he had a noble daughter, Sita, and she had reached marriageable age. So, okay, it's time to have a Swayamvara. So they have this, it was decreed, King Janaka had decreed that only the prince, the warrior who could lift the bow of Shiva, could have the hand of Sita. So from all around, hundreds and hundreds of worthy princes came. They couldn't even lift it up. They tried with all their might. They couldn't even lift the bow of Shiva. There, way in the back, coming in at the end, was Rama. Lakshmana accompanying him as always. So Rama goes up after everyone has tried, and he goes up and he easily lifts the bow, and he easily strings the bow, and he pulls it back, and it just completely breaks and the earth resounds with the sound of the breaking of the bow. Boom! And then everybody knows something big is going to happen. And so Sita and Ram were married. But the truth is, they're eternally inseparable because Sita is the eternal Shakti of Rama. In every age, every incarnation of God has a female counterpart that accompanies him. Jesus had Mary, Rama had Sita, Krishna had Radha, Buddha had Yashodhara, Ramakrishna had Sri Sardadevi. Every avatar has a Shakti it's like Brahman and the power to burn. In this earth, they take human form, but they are eternal Brahman and the power of Brahman, Shakti. So for every incarnation has a mission on earth, and the one who accompanies him to help him with the mission is his Shakti. So Sita was Rama's divine Shakti. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna says, when evil increases, when goodness grows weak, I make myself a body. In every age I come back to deliver the holy, to destroy the sin of the sinner, and to establish righteousness or Dharma. Rama was born to reestablish Dharma. Dharma to the world, to embody it to the world. And that's why he's so relevant now when Dharma is in such short supply and so little in evidence in places where it needs to be in evidence. Now, King Dasharatha grew old, and he decided he wanted to make Rama the king so he could retire from active life and lead a completely spiritual life. And Rama was perfectly happy just being a prince, serving his father and his mothers and taking care of the townspeople, but he would do whatever his father wanted. So they arrived at the palace ready to be installed as king and queen, and they arrive in all their jewels and all their finery and all their silks, and they come, and instead of seeing, and everyone on the town is like, hooray, 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 the town is festooned in glory, but they see King Dasharatha on the floor weeping and wailing. What is wrong with my father? And Queen Kaikeyi has had her mind poisoned by Manthara, with jealousy, with pride, with ambition. Her mind's been poisoned. Actually, it's by Maya. But long, long, long ago, when in the midst of a battle, Queen Kaikeyi had gone on a horse and had saved King Dasharatha from being killed. So he granted her 2 boons. She said, I can't think of anything I want, but I'll keep them. Well, Manthara reminded her of the 2 boons and told her, call them up. So she did. On the eve of the coronation, she told King Dasharatha, I'm demanding my boons. The first boon is that Rama is to be banished for 14 years out in the forest. The second boon is my son Bharata be anointed and crowned as king. Dasharatha was so bereft that he cried. He actually fell unconscious with grief because Rama was literally his very life. But Kaikeyi was overtaken by Maya, by delusion, because of this fear and the greed and the ambition and the pride. So Kaikeyi said, this is what I want. And if you don't give me what I want, you'll be known throughout eternity as a man who doesn't keep his word, a man who breaks his promise. So Rama comes into the palace. He sees this, and Kaikeyi said, this is what I want. I've asked the king that these are the 2 boons that I demand. And if he doesn't keep his promise, he'll know throughout the ages a man who doesn't keep his word as a liar. Now, Rama doesn't turn a hair. He's completely at ease, completely at peace, completely at peace with everything, even-minded. So he happily agrees to go into the forest for 14 years and doesn't bother him a bit. He tells Queen Kaikeyi, of course. He said Bharata, he loved Bharata. It was actually his favorite brother. He said, Bharata and myself, we are much the same. Send for Bharata and have him crowned king. Now, Rama was the living embodiment of Dharma. He wasn't about to do anything that would make the king break his promise. He shows, nor does he feel any resentment, any anger. And he's not the slightest bit disgruntled. It's like, fine. He's perfectly happy to go out in the forest for 14 years. He has this perfect samatvan, evenness of mind. In the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says, samatvan yoga uchate. Yoga is this evenness of mind, evenness. And Rama has that complete evenness of mind. So he looks and acts, looks and acts exactly the same as he goes in, waiting to be crowned king, as when he goes out in beggar's rags, barefoot, ready to be exiled into the forest for 14 years. He's perfectly happy to do either thing. So this shows us another beautiful teaching from the Ramayana, because he's even-minded, not upset, he's detached, he's free from anger, free from hatred. He will do whatever is right, whatever is necessary for the sake of Dharma and of truth. He'll do whatever he can to serve his mother or father. So Rama was born to reestablish Dharma, so everything that he says and does will have to be in line with Dharma. Rama tells Bharat, because Bharat tracks him down in the forest and says, you must come back and assume the throne. You must come back. I will not assume that throne. And Rama says to him, beauty may leave the moon. The Himalayas may become bereft of snow. The ocean may transgress its shores, but I will never violate the promise given by my father. So Bharata takes Rama's sandals and puts them on the throne, and he sits next to them like a servant. Now, does Rama ever think of his individual happiness? Never. Couldn't even dream of such a, does he think about self-care? The whole idea would be absurd to him. Does he ever think, I want to do this? Never. He can't even dream it. Because as a prince, as a future king, as the upholder of Dharma, as one who was born to serve the people, he has no individual anything. He has no individual pride, no individual desires, no individual ambition. He wouldn't even dream of it, couldn't even enter his plane of thinking. Now, most people in the same situation would completely freak out. They'd be overwhelmed. Someone says, oh, you're going to be king. Oops, no, you're going to be banished to the forest. Sorry, made a mistake. They would be overwhelmed by resentment, by thoughts of vengeance, by anger, by hatred. But his mind is steady and calm, completely at peace. Okay, how did he get there? I'd like that. That sounds great. How do I do that? Well, of course, he was an avatar. That always helps. But he also did his work. He did a sadhana. He did his spiritual practice with his guru. And that's what's really transformative. He had control over his mind and the senses, which everybody has to work at. Rama said, to control the mind is more difficult than drying up the ocean, uprooting a mountain, or eating fire. So it's not just us, it's hard, but we have to try. And that's what Rama does. And Rama tells Lakshmana, who is a great soul, but he has a tendency to be kind of impetuous. So he tells him, constantly think of the Atman. If you do that, your mind will be purified. And then your ignorance will be uprooted along with your past tendencies, along with your samskaras. By constantly thinking, I am the Atman, that will purify your mind. It will uproot your ignorance and your past tendencies, those old samskaras that are so painful. He said, it's just like your illnesses disappear when you take your medicine daily. Constantly think, I am the Atman. So how should we deal with all this adversity then? We can try to gain this sort of even-mindedness, and see it, even if it doesn't look like it, see it as a blessing rather than a curse. And to remember, whether we like it or not, that nothing comes to us but by our own previous thoughts and actions. Everything that we experience is the result of our own previous thoughts and actions. There's no surprises here. Everything comes as the results of our own previous thoughts and actions. Rama tells Lakshmana, we have no right to ask when a sorrow comes, why did this happen to me? unless we ask the same question when joy comes. We don't tend to do that. Why did this joy come to me? We say, why did this happen to me? Now, Sita and Rama, I'd say Sita and Lakshmana insist on going on exile with Rama. They cannot imagine life without him. And then they have the whole city going behind him. The whole city is emptying out. All of Ayodhya is emptying out because Rama, as the incarnation of God, is the very embodiment of love. They can't imagine their life, the light of their lives being gone, and the love being without love all this time. So they all follow him. Everybody follows him out, and finally he has to kind of evade them by going around and around in a chariot, so they can't catch him, because he realized the town needs its people. So to reach the forest, they have to cross the Ganges River. It's a big river, and so they have to hire a boatman. And they get to the other shore, but Rama has no money. It's like they're dressed in beggar's rags. There's no anything to pay the boatman with. So Sita very subtly pulls a ring off her finger, hands it to Rama. And Rama gives it to the boatman as payment when they reach the other shore. And the boatman says, I don't take payment from other boatmen. And Rama said, I'm not a boatman. And the boatman says, Kavat says, I take people across this river. You take people across the ocean of samsara to the other side. And because of his sincerity and his simple devotion, Rama granted him mukti and freedom from rebirth, from this endless birth, death, rebirth, granted him freedom. Rama said to Lakshmana, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman or what your caste is or your name or your position or whatever your station in life is, it doesn't matter. Devotion is the only thing that's essential. He said, those who have devotion to me will get knowledge, and they will get renunciation, and they will attain mukti, liberation. Now, once in the forest in exile, they meet Guha, a wonderful tribal. Now, he's the king of the tribals. Now, you got to remember, in India, they are such outliers, not even in the caste system. It isn't like he is it isn't like he's like a Dalit or anything. They're outside the caste system. There's just like, they're way gone. They're way gone. They're, he's got paint, he's got feathers, he's got the whole thing. He seems like the perfect antithesis of Rama, who's so cultured. On appearance, Guha is uncouth, he's unlettered, he's unsocialized. But Guha has heard of what's happened in Ayodhya, and he doesn't like it. He thinks it's really unfair that this has happened to Rama. So he sees him, and Guha goes up to him to make a complete fall on the front, Shishtanga Pranam. Rama picks him up, holds him to his breast. He catches him, and he treats him like an old friend. And Guha can't control his tears because he's never experienced such intense love. Never has he experienced this kind of love that knows no barriers, and of all people, from Rama, this unconditional love. And this is what Tulsidas shows us is what the Lord has for each and every one of us. So Rama calls him friend. Now, this is really interesting because there's only 3 beings in the entire Ramayana that Rama uses the word friend, meet. He calls him friend. And untouched, beyond untouchable, the very bottom of the social hierarchy. Now, Rama shows us that we can never judge people by externals. He could see how pure Guha's heart was, and that's all Rama cared about. We tend to judge people by externals because it makes it easy for us. But Rama can't do that. He shows how wrong it is to judge people by that. Now, all of today's social, political, racial problems are brought on by this alone, by this tendency. We don't see people as embodiments of divinity. We tend to define them by black and white, by red and blue, by Democrat, Republican, by educated or uneducated, by what they do. But We don't look in their hearts and see the Lord seated there, but Rama does. He shows us that this is what we have to do. We have such knee-jerk reactions to the externals that we're not even aware of our own biases, though we can see them so clearly in everybody else. So there's only 3 beings that Rama ever calls friend, Mitra. He's the first. So what are our untouchables? What are our tribals? Well, maybe that's the dirty homeless person. Maybe it's the crazy person that we're all afraid of. Maybe it's someone who stormed the Capitol. Maybe it's someone who marched in Black Lives Matter. Whoever our guha is, that's who Rama embraces and holds to his heart and calls friend. Tulsidas, in the beginning of the Ramayana, asks for the blessings of all beings before he even starts the text. He said, I ask for the blessings of all beings, both good and bad, because he sees divinity and knows that Rama and Sita are present in all of them. But moreover, he said that we learn from the good, we learn how to behave from the good, and we learn how not to behave from the bad. But they're all manifestations of divinity. They're all manifestations, as he sees it, of Rama and Sita in this world, because everything is a manifestation of divine. Swamiji says in Jnana Yoga, the whole world is full of the Lord. Open your eyes and see him. Give up the world which you have conjectured, the world which we have been thinking of so long is a false world of our own creation. Open your eyes and see that it never existed. It was a dream. It was Maya. What existed through this whole world is the Lord himself. It is he who is in the child, he who is in the wife, and in the husband. It is he who is in the good. It is he who is in the bad. He is in the sin. He is in the sinner. He is in life, and he is in death. If we know that, and if we just try to remember it, then who is our enemy? Who is our enemy? Just our ignorance is really our own enemy. So years pass, and Sita and Rama are enjoying their life out in the forest. But the evil demon Ravana has heard of Sita's beauty, and he must possess her for himself. So here comes egotism, here comes greed, here comes lust. And he kidnaps Sita, and off they go in the flying chariot. Anyone had one then, in the flying chariot off to Sri Lanka. And so Rama and Lakshmana go off looking for her everywhere. And on the way, they encounter one of our more interesting characters. That's Jatayu, the king of the vultures. Now, Jatayu is a huge, magnificent, old, wise bird. But he's seen what's happened to He sees this beautiful young woman being kidnapped by the evil Ravana. And he's a vulture of Dharma. So he goes up there to protect Sita. But Ravana has no compassion whatsoever. So he cuts off one wing, and Jatayu fights valiantly, but then the other wing has fallen down. And so he falls down to the earth dying. And Rama and Lakshmana are looking everywhere for Sita, and they're finding like these little things of hers on the ground. And then they come upon Jatayu dying on the ground. And Rama tenderly washes the wounds of Jatayu and begs him to live. But Jatayu tells him, I've kept alive only to see you. The mention of your name brings even the worst sinner salvation, yet you come to me when need is there to live any longer. And Rama calls him friend, Mitra. The second time the word is used, Mitra. And he's using it on a non-human and on a vulture. Now, vultures kind of creep people out. They're filthy birds that live on the carrion, on dead bodies. Most people don't go up to vulture and call them friend, let alone an incarnation of God. But Rama says to him, meet friend. It is your own good deeds that have saved you. There is nothing in the world beyond the reach of those who devote their souls for the good of others. What a beautiful teaching we get from Rama here. If we devote our souls for the good of others, what a world, what a society would we have now? The pandemic would have come under control so fast. We wouldn't be having all these political, racial, social issues, all the crazy, needless mass murders, the shootings. None of this would be happening for those who devote their souls for the good of others. Rama is so relevant. So Rama again shows with Vachitayu the need to deify the world and to look more deeply into things. We tend to think of non-humans as it. It is out there. It is out there. Not a thing. It's a thing. It's not a being. But they have their own independent lives. They're not our appendages. They're not here for us. They have their own independent, worthy, beautiful lives with their own joys, their own sorrows. They're not here to take care of us. And that's what we see in the Ramayana, this complete divinization of all life out there. Rama calls him meet friend. So Rama and Sita are on the way, as Rama and Lakshmana are on the way to try to find Sita, and they run into another a tribal woman by the name of Shabari, who was an old bent over woman in this little tiny shack. But she had been told by her guru when she was a very young nun that she would, one day the Lord would come to her place and would bless her. So for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years, she'd been doing the same thing. She carefully cleaning her little hut, making it perfect, removing every little leaf, every little petal in the pathway so that the Lord would not have his tender feet wounded. And every day she'd go out and pick berries, tasting every single one to make sure that it was perfectly sweet, that it could be sweet enough for the Lord. Now, in the Hindu tradition, if you put something into your mouth, it is defiled. You have to be thrown away. No, not in her world. She's a tribal. So, when Rama and Lakshmana arrive there, she's beside herself with joy. Finally the day has arrived. The Lord arrives. And Swami Prabhupada used to say, every day think, today is the day that I will realize God. Never think it's like, oh, someday I'll do it and just go, today I'll do my job, I'll do my thing. It's like, today is the day that I will realize God. Today, every day for her was the day that Rama would come. So she's an old woman, but she sees him, she's overwhelmed with joy. And Rama is so happy in her company. And she gives him this bowl of fruits. And he tastes it, even though you can tell, they're all half eaten. And he says, oh, these are so sweet. I've never had anything so delicious. He said, nothing can equal the sweetness of these berries offered with such devotion. So he gives them to Lakshmana. Please taste these. And Lakshmana puts them to his mouth. He can't do it. He can't, and he throws it aside. He can't go there because he sees half-eaten defiled fruit. Rama sees divinity. So it's Shabari. Rama blesses her for her devotion. He blesses her with her vision, and she gives up her body down there. But thankfully, before she gives up her body, she says, go to the monkey kingdom. Get your help from Hanuman. There you will find how to get Sita. So they go to they encounter the monkey armies and the bear armies. And there he encounters his perfect devotee, Hanuman, one of the great exemplars in the Hindu tradition. He never calls Hanuman meet, never calls him friend. Why? Because Hanuman's attitude is that of Dasya, of the perfect servant. Every devotional attitude towards God is embodied in the Ramayana. The perfect friend, as we see with Guha, the perfect servant of Hanuman, the perfect filial attitude with Lakshmana, the attitude of Vatsalya, the mother and the father to the child with Rama and his Dasharatha and the mothers, that beautiful attitude, and Sita and Ram, that conjugal aspect of love. So Hanuman, they get to there, he meets Hanuman, his perfect devotee, they get down to the shore, and there's the ocean in front of them. They have to get across the ocean to the island. There's no way to get there. And so Jambavan tells the wise bear, tells Hanuman, jump. And Hanuman says, I can't go over that. Well, see, Hanuman had been a very naughty little monkey. And so when he was a naughty little monkey, he had upset a sage and he messed his stuff up and the sage cursed him. When you need to remember who you are, you're going to forget. Because Hanuman wasn't just ordinary monkey. He was the son of Vayu, the son of the wind himself. So Hanuman says, with Rama and all the armies there, I can't go jump over there. Jambavan says, remember who you are. You are the son of Vayu. You are the son of the wind. No one in the entire world is equal to you in strength and intelligence. Remember who you are, just Jambavan says these words, Hanuman grows and grows and he gets bigger and bigger because he remembers who he is. And this is what the Upanishads do for us, what all the sacred scriptures do for us, what our gurus do for us. They remind us who we are. Tat Twamasi, thou art that. We are perfect, we are pure, we are eternal, we are free. That is the role of the scriptures and the guru, reminding us who we are. So he goes and he jumps over there, and finally all the monkeys and all the bears go over, and the demon army is conquered. Now, helping Rama in this mission is another interesting character who is Ravana's younger brother, Vibhishna. Now, Vibhishna, like his brother Ravana, he's a demon, not a human. But unlike his elder brother Ravana, he's kind, he's compassionate, he's noble, he's unselfish. He's pure-hearted. And so when Rama meets him, Rama calls him friend, our third instance. He calls him Mitra, friend, a demon. Well, what does this tell us with our three instances? We've got a tribal, we've got a vulture, and we have a demon. Well, the obvious one is Rama is a friend to all. And anyone who takes refuge in him receives his unconditional grace. Even Ravana would have received his grace and would have been embraced by Rama if he had taken refuge in him. So what, again, we have to learn is to look deeper. We see an uncouth lettered person, we see a vulture, we see a demon, but that very person that we think may be a demon or a vulture may be our dearest friend in disguise. We just don't realize it. So whatever our demons are, that indeed may be our best friend. Rama sees friend and divinity at the hearts of all beings. Now, Vibhishna is the upholder of Dharma. And he repeatedly warned his elder brother, don't do that. But Ravana ignored him and completely threatened him all the time to kill him. And Ravana is kind of our last lesson here. Ravana was a great spiritual aspirant. He was well versed in the Vedas. He was the great grandson of Brahma himself. He was he could perform great tapasya, great spiritual austerities. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. And Brahma was so pleased with him that he granted him the boon of near invulnerability, which was kind of made it difficult for Rama to kill him. But Ravana was egotistic, he was lustful. And that was his downfall. When Rama returned to Ayodhya, his mother Kausalya said, did you kill Ravana? And Rama said, Ravana, the great scholar, the great tapasvi, the Lord of Lanka, the great poet, Ravana, was killed by his ego. Ravana could have been truly great. He could have been truly great. Rama himself speaks of his greatness, but ego and lust can undo the highest spiritual aspirant, which is a great lesson for all of us. You're never safe enough from ego, from lust, from all those. So 14 years have passed, and Rama returns to Ayodhya with, at first, all the monkeys and Guha and everybody in there, and every single person there, every single person thought that Rama loved her or him the most, more than anybody in the whole world. Every individual, even and all the queens, Kausalya thought, he is my son, my bodily son. He will come to me first. Sumitra thinks to herself, he's always loved me the most because I'm the wisest of all the queens. And even Kaikeyi, who was filled with remorse, said, he is so loving and forgiving. He's always loved me. I will fall at his feet and beg his forgiveness, and he will come to me first. And every townsperson thought, he will come to me first. And the miracle of what happened was when he alighted from his aerial chariot and got out, every person had that experience of Rama coming to them first. Tulsidas said, in a single moment, the blessed Lord embraced them all. as he does with us, if and when we want it. And I will end again with Tulsidas. Knowing the universe to be filled with Sita and Rama, I join my two hands and bow to them in pranam. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Filled with Brahman are the things we see. Filled with Brahman are the things we see not. For out of Brahman flows all that is. From Brahman flows all, yet Brahman remains the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. Any questions or arguments or problems? Threats? I know I talked a long time, but I can't help it. You get me on Rama, and I just will keep going like one of those batteries. Okay, then have a wonderful rest of your day. Tonight are the Oscars for anybody who's actually going to listen to it. Hopefully we'll get some rain here. They're talking about a 1/10 to a 20th of an inch. We'll take it. Thank you, Mother. We'll have on Wednesday, Tuesday, our RT here will be recorded and be available on Zoom. And on Wednesday, we'll have our reading of the Eternal Companion. And on Saturday, we'll have a reading of the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna at 5 o'clock. Everybody everyone stay safe and happy, stay well. Glad to see you all.